Alright, well, we had a little bit of a video mishap, so I'm going to try to reconstruct this to the best of my ability. Most of the automotive self-help videos that I've seen over the last 15 years are terrible or lacking, and it is frustrating. First of all, I don't want to hear somebody's terrible taste in music. Second of all, I don't want a video that is in actuality a series of still pictures. And I want a video where someone is actually narrating and helping me learn with audio as well as video. So without further ado, this is the headlight motor gear replacement for the C5 Corvette, which is 1997 to 2004. They are notorious for going bad. I've already done the one on the passenger side. This is the old gear that I took out of it. You can see it's got some flat spots on it. They get down. This is the metal gear that replaced it. All right. Now I'm going to show you something before you get started on this job. Okay, so this is your motor, and in here is that gear. And these three bolts, which by the way have nuts on the other side, which have varying degrees of difficulty getting to, are what hold it in. Now what happens is you're going to pry, after you take this out, you're going to pry this plastic piece off. It doesn't necessarily snap back in real nice. And it may not want to stay on. I've seen that happen more than once. Okay, so on this one, I took this piece of scrap metal and cut it to the exact right size, and that retains that plastic backing of the gear housing from ever coming out. And it just bolts right through two of those three bolts. So you're going to want to do something like that and get that prepared before you get into this job. This is the piece I'm going to use on the driver's side. Now I'm going to show you right here that it is not quite it's not quite long enough. First of all, the holes aren't far enough apart, but the actual metal just stretches from bolt to bolt. So what I'm actually going to do is cut slots in here. Anyway, so there, I cut some slots in there. They may or may not be wide enough to accommodate the thickness of the shaft of the bolt. I'm going to find that out, but I'm real close if they're not. What you don't want to do is cut them too wide if you are using a piece of metal like this, because then you're going to have to use washers to compensate for the size of the head of the bolt, not basically going through the slot. You don't want that to happen. Or you could just get a fresh piece of metal and drill holes out accordingly. But this is what I had on hand. This seemed like an easy way to go, and we'll take a look once we get this thing out. So I did have a little bit of a video mishap first go around, so I'm just going to tell you really quick. This piece here, which I'm about to take out, is held on by a Phillips head there, and two Phillips heads on the other side, one in front of the hood when it's tilted, one behind it. That's all, just 3 screws, and then this thing just kind of, pries out like this. It's a little hard to do with one hand, but there you go. Okay, so that comes out, and then this cover comes off, and there are 2 Torx bolts here. They're Torx 15s. There's one here, and there's one here. Okay, and before I did anything, you want to remove there's 2 here, 1 and 2. So those are all out. In fact, you can see the Torx bolts, and here's the Phillips. So, and just so you know, I opened the headlights up, and instead of wasting battery, once I got them up, I disconnected the cables there. Okay, so this wire harness just plugs right in. Okay, now the next thing you're going to want to do is remove this piece here, just for ease of access. I believe it's one, two, 3, and 4. And those are either Torx 15s like the others or Torx 20. Now, of course, you can do these Torx and the other screws by hand, but for this job and many in the future, you're going to want an electric bit driver like this. I got this one on Amazon for less than $20. And one of the things I like about it is it's not only the traditional gun shape, but for some spots it's easier to convert it to this traditional electric screwdriver form factor. And it's literally a 1-second job of pressing that button and twisting the two pieces. I can't do it and hold the camera, but you get the idea. And yes, I do like the baby hot pink color. It makes it easy to spot this tool. Okay, these two Torx 20 bolts with either 5/16 or 8mm nuts on them actually hold the fixture into this bracket. Now, I did the other one without removing these, but it was a little tricky to reach in there. But on this one, I just decided to take it out, and frankly, it's a lot easier. Now you've got really good access to the nuts on the other side of the bolts that hold the motor assembly in. So let's get those out without further ado. Okay, you're going to need a 10mm socket and a 10mm wrench, because the bolts will spin freely if you don't have something applying pressure on both sides. I highly recommend, if you don't have one, an electric 3/8 socket. Invaluable tool. Okay, so I've taken the 3 bolts out. And also there is a 4th nut for the actual shaft that does the rotation to flip the arm to lift and recess the light fixture. So it's all out, the motor's out. Okay, so this is where we're going to pry this off to get this. What I'm noticing interesting here is that on the driver's side one, this is on the inside. In other words, we're not going to need that extra piece of metal to retain it the way I did on the driver's side. On the passenger side. So I'm starting to wonder if perhaps somebody replaced this thing before I got to it, and maybe, just maybe, they used a driver's side one on a passenger side, and that's why it's flipped around. Or maybe that's just the way it is. But we're not going to need that piece of metal, because this thing actually goes inside and is not exposed outside. So I guess that's a small piece of good news. Yeah, I had another slight video mishap. So this is what it looks like. I have slathered this Mobil 1 synthetic grease. This stuff is fantastic. I haven't had the lid on this can for literally a decade, and it doesn't dry out. It's amazing stuff. It stays just as moist as the day I got it without a lid retaining the moisture. And you can see I've really covered this part. This is where the worm gear of the motor hits the new metal gear. And the metal gear itself, all the way around the circumference, is greased up. The old saying, you can't be too rich or too thin. Well, you can't have too much grease where gears are concerned. Alright, so I've put the plastic cover back on, and I think we are ready to reassemble. Alright, so I went ahead and assembled it. I'm not sure how much you're going to be able to see. I'm going to try to squeeze this thing in there. So you see all three nuts on the outside. When I say outside, I mean not the center nut. The center nut's the shaft that goes onto the arm. So all four nuts are properly attached, and this thing's working fine. And I'll just go ahead and show you before I reassemble the aesthetic part of it. So there's down, and there's up, and there's down again, and there's up. So it's working. Okay, now just to remember, the order of operations to reassemble it is we're going to put this part back on the top, right there. Then we're going to put on the aesthetic cover. And then the last piece is that plastic bezel that goes around the actual headlight itself. And if you remember, these are Torx 15s. Okay, so that is not quite grabbing the little metal piece underneath. I'm gonna have to manipulate it with my fingers. Okay, it had slid over, so we're just gonna go ahead and screw it down now. There we go. And 3 and 4. Okay, time for the lid. Okay, so for whatever reason, it was just a little easier to put this on by dropping the headlight. So remember, these two bolts that we actually took off first, let's go ahead and attach these while it's down. As so frequently happens, if you're not unbelievably careful, I can only find 3 of these 4. I've got one in there, and one there, and one here. These 3, of course, are the Phillips head for the bezel. So I'm going to have to sacrifice one for now, and I am of the opinion that I'm going to sacrifice this one. This one is centered, and I'm thinking that when the headlights are up and you are moving forward with great velocity, as this supercharged beast has plenty of, there's going to be quite a lot of wind resistance hitting the front part of this headlight cover. So I'm going to want at least the bolts there in the front. So I'm not going to sacrifice that. I'll leave this one out for now. Okay, on this last part, when you put this bezel in, you're going to want to put the bottom in first, as I recall, like that. Get it past the headlight, and then you want this part up here to match up there. And there, you can see it's matching up real well. We just got to get the screws in. You know, this you're going to have to hold by hand while you screw it in. I can't do the camera and hold it. Yeah, see, this wanted to fall down with gravity till it screwed in. It was impossible for me to hold the camera and do that and screw it in. Now all I have to do is this screw over here, that's behind here. So because this one's at a slight angle, I'm actually going to use this little guy. These are absolutely awesome. This one's made by a company called Vim. I got this also on Amazon. Incredible little tool for exactly this kind of a thing. we're basically done. The only thing left is we want to put this little boot back on the back of the motor to protect it from moisture. And it just slides right on. And that is the entire job. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped you out a lot.